No one ever taught Daniel how belief worked. Not truly. As a child, he was taught facts, systems, rules, the correct answers on tests, the importance of being realistic, the dangers of too much imagination. He memorized equations, historical dates, even the correct posture to sit at a desk. But no one ever sat him down and said, belief isn't just something you hold in your mind. It's a force, and it's always listening. Daniel wouldn't have believed it anyway, not back then. His world was shaped by what he could see, touch, and measure. He liked proof. He liked certainty. He liked being able to predict outcomes. It made him feel safe. So he built his life like a fortress of logic. College, corporate job, a sensible apartment, even the same breakfast every morning. It was quiet, neat, controlled, and slowly draining the color out of his soul. But then came the fracture. He was 32 when the layoff happened. No warning, just a quick Zoom call, a few stiff apologies, and suddenly his screen went black. His steady income vanished. His daily schedule disintegrated. And in the silence that followed, something began to stir. Not panic, not yet. It was something quieter, something older, something that had been waiting. It was a memory. He remembered being 10 years old, lying on the grass in his backyard and imagining that he could talk to the stars, not in words, but in feelings. He believed, truly believed, that if he concentrated hard enough, the stars would respond. Back then, it wasn't silly. It wasn't irrational. It was just obvious. Reality had no edges when he was 10. But somewhere along the way, he learned to stop believing in magic. He learned to replace wonder with doubt, connection with caution. But now that everything had fallen apart, he didn't have much to protect anymore. So he started experimenting, quietly, secretly. He wouldn't have admitted it to anyone, not even himself, but something deep within whispered that maybe, just maybe, there was more going on beneath the surface of life. That belief might not just be a feeling, that maybe it was a conversation. It started small. He began sitting in silence for 10 minutes every morning. No phone, no scrolling, no plans, just breathing. Then he began writing a single sentence in a notebook each day. Life works in my favor. At first it felt dumb, like writing lines in school detention. But the act of doing it repeatedly, gently, without expectation, began to shift something subtle inside him. It wasn't a thunderclap. It was more like a light dimmer, turning up one tiny notch at a time.
Then odd things began happening. He would think of a person he hadn't spoken to in years, and they'd message him that same day. He'd feel drawn to take a different walking route, only to stumble upon a bookstore that was hiring part-time help. He'd hear the same phrase repeated from different sources within hours, like the universe was threading a sentence through different mouths. He told himself it was just coincidence, at first, but deep down, something in him knew better. That's when he found the journal. It wasn't his. It was hidden in the attic of his childhood home during a visit to help his mother clean out old boxes. Bound in cracked leather, dusty and forgotten, it was labeled only with the initials T.S. Inside, the handwriting was neat, deliberate, strange. The entries were dated between 1942 and 1947. The author wrote about thought experiments, not in the academic sense, but as if belief could bend the fabric of events. He described tests, willing someone to call, envisioning a specific sequence of events, focusing emotion into a kind of signal. Each time, he claimed, something would respond. Daniel read for hours. The most chilling passage came near the end. The world does not obey logic. It obeys belief. The world is not speaking English or math. It's speaking you. If your beliefs are fearful, the world listens. If your beliefs are alive, full of vision, the world listens harder. Daniel felt like his skin was made of static. He took the journal home. That week, he tried something new. He didn't just say affirmations, he lived them in his imagination. He didn't just hope for outcomes, he walked through his apartment like the version of him who already had them. Not as fantasy, but as training. He began to treat belief not as an accessory, but as a code he was feeding into the main frame of reality. Things accelerated. The bookstore offered him more hours. A stranger overheard him talking about an old design hobby and offered to connect him with a friend starting a business. He received a tax refund he hadn't expected. He began waking up with energy. His dreams became vivid. He would think of a concept in the morning and see a video about it by night. He didn't feel like he was manifesting. That word felt too flashy. What he felt instead was this: alignment. Then, one morning, it hit him. He wasn't making the universe do anything. He was just finally learning how to speak its language. A language made of feelings, intentions, inner movies, and most importantly, belief. The universe, he realized, was not some genie waiting to be begged. It was a mirror, but not a passive one, a responsive one. A mirror that listened not with ears, but with resonance. When he believed something deeply, not just mentally but emotionally, the mirror didn't reflect it instantly, but it prepared, it adjusted, it sculpted probability around his frequency. This is what people had always meant by faith. Not blind hope, not forced positivity, but the inner certainty that your reality is shaped not by the outer world first, but by your inner stance to it. The silent power of belief wasn't about being delusional. It was about understanding that the boundary between self and world is much thinner than we've been taught. That your mind is not inside your head. It's part of a larger field, like a signal tower, always transmitting. And the universe is not distant. It's responsive, listening not to your words, but to your certainty, your fear, your readiness. By now, Daniel wasn't keeping it a secret. He wasn't preaching, but he wasn't hiding either. His friends noticed the change, his energy, his calm, his quiet joy. One asked him, "What happened to you?" Daniel smiled. "I stopped asking the world for proof, and I started giving it belief instead." The friend frowned. "What does that mean?" Daniel just chuckled and replied, "You'll see. You already are. You just don't realize you're the one writing the story." He walked away, not with swagger, but with stillness. Because when you truly understand how your belief shapes the world around you, you no longer need to shout. The universe has already heard you.